Have you ever paused before a meal and wondered, what is the unseen cost of the food on your plate? Beyond calories, nutrition, and fleeting satisfaction, what energy do we absorb when we consume the flesh of another living being? What echoes ripple through our consciousness, silently shaping our emotions, thoughts, and spiritual clarity? Across countless spiritual traditions, there is a whisper, often ignored, sometimes dismissed, that eating meat carries consequences far beyond the body. It is said to imprint the energy of fear, suffering, and death onto the one who consumes it. Every act of taking a life, even indirectly through consumption, leaves subtle traces, weaving a tapestry of karmic repercussions that touch our minds, hearts, and souls. In this video, we will explore the hidden spiritual dimensions of eating meat. We'll trace the teachings of ancient sages and mystics, uncover the philosophy behind dietary ethics, and reveal the subtle energetic effects that influence consciousness, emotional balance, and spiritual progress. We will also examine the modern implications, how our choices in diet resonate with our mental clarity, emotional stability, and connection to higher states of being. Prepare to look beyond the familiar debates of health or morality. This is not about judgment or fear, but about understanding, about illuminating the invisible consequences that each meal imprints upon the spirit. The question is not only what you eat, but who you become when you eat it. By the end of this exploration, you will see your plate as a mirror, reflecting the unseen currents of life, energy, and consciousness, and perhaps, you may reconsider the path to harmony, both within and with the world around you. Throughout history, spiritual traditions across the world have connected diet with consciousness, ethics, and the soul's evolution. In ancient India, the Vedic texts and later the Upanishads emphasized ahimsa, the principle of nonviolence. Consuming the flesh of sentient beings was seen not merely as a moral choice, but as an action that directly affects the subtle energy body, accumulating karmic consequences and obstructing spiritual growth. The act of taking life reverberated through the eater's consciousness, influencing their thoughts, emotions, and spiritual receptivity. Buddhism, too, reflects this perspective. The Buddha emphasized compassion and mindfulness, warning that participation in the cycle of killing, even indirectly, generates negative karmic momentum. Monks and lay practitioners were encouraged to follow diets that minimize harm, not only for ethical reasons but to cultivate clarity, serenity, and detachment from desires that tether the soul to worldly suffering. Even in the West, echoes of this understanding appear. Pythagoras, the ancient Greek philosopher and mystic, advocated vegetarianism, linking it to the purification of the soul. He taught that consuming the flesh of animals dulls the mind, clouds judgment, and fosters aggression. Plato and other philosophers similarly acknowledged the connection between diet, character, and spiritual refinement. Indigenous cultures, too, often observed ritualized hunting practices, emphasizing respect, gratitude, and conscious intention. The act of taking life was never casual, it required acknowledgement of the animal's spirit and a deep awareness of the energetic consequences. In many traditions, ritual slaughter was accompanied by prayers and offerings, ensuring the eater recognized that life is sacred and energy is transferred with every act of consumption. The common thread across these diverse traditions is clear: eating meat is not a neutral act. It shapes consciousness, influences emotional balance, and has spiritual ramifications that extend far beyond the physical body. The consequences are subtle, but persistent, creating an undercurrent of energy that affects how one experiences life, interacts with others, and progresses along the spiritual path. To truly understand the spiritual consequences of eating meat, we must look beyond the physical body and consider the subtle realms of energy and consciousness. Every living being carries a vibrational imprint, a combination of instinct, awareness, and the experiences of life and suffering. When we consume meat, we are, in essence, ingesting that energy. It is not just protein or calories, it is the echo of fear, pain, and struggle that the animal experienced in its final moments. Imagine the act as a ripple in a pond. The suffering of the animal creates vibrations that extend outward. By consuming the meat, we participate in the continuation of that ripple, incorporating it into our own energetic field. Over time, these subtle vibrations can manifest as heightened aggression, irritability, or emotional turbulence. They may cloud mental clarity, hinder meditation, and make it more difficult to cultivate compassion and equanimity. Many mystical traditions liken the body to a temple or vessel of consciousness. What we consume feeds not only the body but also the mind and spirit. Foods imbued with life, vitality, and gentle energy, such as fresh fruits, vegetables, grains, and legumes, elevate the consciousness of the eater. Conversely, meat, sourced through the taking of life, introduces dense, heavy energy that can act as a subtle barrier to spiritual growth. Furthermore, eating meat often reinforces a mindset of separation and dominance over other life forms. The act of consuming another being as food conditions the mind to accept violence as normal, desensitizing the individual to suffering. This desensitization can manifest in subtle forms of ego-driven behavior, impatience, and insensitivity, all of which hinder inner awakening and spiritual evolution. Yet, it is important to note that this is not a simplistic moral judgment. The consequences are energetic, not punitive. The universe does not punish the meat eater, but the energetic imprint of harm shapes the consciousness of the one who participates in it. Just as positive, compassionate actions elevate vibration and clarity, participation in harm carries subtle residue that can influence the mind, emotions, and subtle body. Having explored the immediate energetic impact of consuming meat, we now turn to the long-term spiritual consequences and the subtleties that shape consciousness over time. One key aspect is the principle of karmic resonance. Every act of taking life carries an imprint, a subtle energetic residue that lingers in the consciousness of both the being who dies and the one who consumes. Over time, repeated participation in this cycle can reinforce patterns of attachment, aggression, and insensitivity, making it more difficult to cultivate compassion and inner stillness. Intention plays a critical role in these effects. In traditions that emphasize ritualized or conscious consumption, such as indigenous practices or certain Vedic approaches, the act of taking life is performed with respect, gratitude, and mindfulness. While the energetic consequences cannot be entirely negated, the conscious acknowledgement and reverence for the life-taking can significantly mitigate the impact on the eater's spiritual development. In contrast, habitual consumption without awareness embeds dense energies unconsciously, subtly shaping thought patterns, emotions, and even spiritual receptivity. Modern dietary practices amplify these effects in unexpected ways. Industrialized meat production often involves extreme stress, fear, and suffering for animals. The energy associated with such experiences is intense and dense. When we consume meat sourced from such systems, we are incorporating not just the life of the animal but the compounded stress and suffering of its environment. In subtle energetic terms, this can generate heaviness in the mind and body, creating internal friction that hinders meditation, insight, and spiritual sensitivity. The spiritual consequences also extend to empathy and perception. Regular consumption of meat can dull sensitivity to subtle energies, making it more challenging to perceive the interconnectedness of life. It can create a barrier to developing the subtle faculties required for deep meditation, clairvoyance, or energetic discernment, all of which are central in many mystical traditions. In essence, the body becomes a filter that colors the perception of reality. Yet, there is hope. Conscious dietary choices are a form of spiritual practice. By reducing or eliminating the consumption of meat, one gradually purifies the body, mind, and subtle energy field. This purification enhances clarity, emotional balance, and the capacity for compassion, allowing the seeker to engage with higher states of consciousness more readily. It is not an absolute rule. Many spiritual adepts have worked through karmic consequences, but the path of conscious, plant-based nutrition aligns naturally with spiritual refinement and the cultivation of inner peace. In the next section, Practical Application, we will explore concrete steps, exercises, and mindful practices that allow viewers to integrate this understanding into their daily lives and spiritual routines. Understanding the energetic and spiritual impact of eating meat is only the beginning. True insight lies in applying this knowledge to daily life, transforming dietary choices into tools for spiritual growth, clarity, and compassion. Here are practical steps to integrate this understanding into your practice. 1. Begin with awareness. Before making any changes, cultivate mindfulness around your meals. Observe what you eat and the energy it carries. Ask yourself, where does this food come from? What life did it affect? What energy am I taking into my body? Simply becoming aware of these factors begins the process of conscious eating, allowing subtle shifts in energy and intention to take root. 2. Gradual reduction. Transitioning away from meat does not need to be abrupt. Begin by reducing consumption, replacing one meal at a time with plant-based alternatives. This gradual approach allows both the body and mind to adjust while observing the subtle energetic effects of the change. Notice any shifts in mood, clarity, or sensitivity as you incorporate lighter, life-affirming foods. 3. Mindful sourcing. If eliminating meat entirely is not immediately feasible, focus on conscious sourcing. Seek ethically raised, minimally stressed animals, or support small-scale, humane farming practices. Even small adjustments can reduce the intensity of energetic imprints and demonstrate respect for life. Pair consumption with gratitude, acknowledging the life that sustains you and the interconnectedness of all beings. 4. Incorporate energetic cleansing practices. Regular meditation, breathwork, and mindful movement can help purify subtle energies absorbed from food. Practices such as pranayama, qigong, or mindful walking allow the body and subtle energy system to process dense vibrations, fostering clarity, calmness, and balance. 5. Cultivate compassion in action. Spiritual growth is amplified by compassionate choices. Beyond diet, consciously acting with kindness towards all sentient beings strengthens empathy and spiritual receptivity. Volunteering at animal sanctuaries, supporting conservation efforts, or practicing acts of everyday kindness aligns energy with higher consciousness. 6. Observe the effects on mind and spirit. Track your mental and emotional patterns as dietary changes take place. Many practitioners notice increased clarity, patience, and emotional stability when reducing or eliminating meat. Journal reflections, subtle sensations, and insights during meditation can reveal how your energetic state evolves in response to dietary refinement. 7. Make it a spiritual ritual. Transform meals into sacred rituals. Eat slowly, with gratitude, recognizing the life force and energy present in each bite. Visualize consuming not just nourishment for the body, but energy that elevates consciousness and aligns with compassion. Over time, eating becomes a practice that supports spiritual evolution rather than a source of karmic residue. By applying these practices, the act of eating transforms from a passive routine into a conscious, spiritually aligned choice. The energetic consequences of diet are no longer abstract, they become tangible experiences, guiding your mind, body, and spirit toward balance, clarity, and higher states of awareness. In the next section, Conclusion, we will tie together the philosophical insights, energetic implications, and practical guidance to leave the viewer with a clear, inspired understanding of the spiritual consequences of eating meat. Eating is not merely a biological necessity, it is an energetic act that shapes consciousness, emotion, and spiritual potential. Across traditions, from the Vedas to Buddhism, from Pythagoras to Taoist mystics, the connection between diet and spiritual evolution is clear. Consuming the flesh of another being carries subtle, persistent energetic consequences. Fear, suffering, and death are imprinted into the eater's consciousness, influencing clarity, emotional balance, and spiritual receptivity. We explore the historical and philosophical context, uncovering how ancient wisdom consistently linked diet with inner development and karmic consequence. We examine the energetic mechanics of consumption, showing how dense vibrations of fear and suffering can cloud mind, body, and subtle energy. We also delved into the nuances of intention, ethical sourcing, and the compounding effects of modern industrialized practices. Most importantly, we offered practical guidance, cultivating awareness, reducing or eliminating meat consumption, practicing gratitude, incorporating energetic cleansing techniques, and observing the effects on mind and spirit. These steps transform eating from a routine act into a conscious, spiritually aligned practice, allowing the body and consciousness to harmonize with higher states of being. The ultimate teaching is simple yet profound. The choices we make in nourishment are choices for consciousness itself. By aligning diet with compassion, awareness, and respect for life, we elevate not only the body but the mind and soul. The energy we consume becomes the energy we embody. The question remains for each of us: will we continue to ingest energies that cloud our clarity, or will we choose food that nourishes not only the body but the soul? Every meal is an opportunity, a moment to cultivate harmony, awareness, and spiritual resonance. The path to awakening is reflected on our plates. What we choose to consume becomes the mirror of who we are becoming.